I Love Mortgage Brokering, episode 74.
Want to learn from the top 5% of mortgage brokers in the country? Then you have come to the right place. Join Scott Peckford on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hi, Broker Nation. I am thrilled to introduce our guest today, Alfonso Casciato. He's been in the mortgage business for 20 years. Alfonso is the Senior Vice President of Sales for Street Capital. He's been with Street since the beginning in the fall of 2007. I'm stoked with this interview today. Alfonso, you ready to rock?
Ready to rock.
Awesome. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the mortgage business? Because my experience has been most people, when they're in kindergarten, don't say when they grow up they want to be a mortgage broker. It's usually firefighter or policeman. So how did you end up in the mortgage biz?
Well, like most people, I came out of university with no job, looking for a job. I was lucky enough to start up with CIBC, but not on the mortgage side. I was on the visa side. And then there was an opportunity to join household finance. And within household finance, shortly after joining them, I began my career on the real estate collection side. So got my first taste of mortgages that were falling into arrears and looking at mortgage applications and covenants and trying to figure out how we could rectify the arrears situation and through refinances, et cetera. And so got my first taste of trying to put deals together. And with about 5 years of experience with household finance, I then took the path back to CIBC, which eventually landed me with PCF when they launched, ran the credit group within PCF as they continued to grow and become successful to the point where First Line came calling, and there was an opportunity to take over the credit group within First Line Mortgages. And as they say, the rest is history.
And so First Line, you were with them for how many years?
I was with First Line for 5 years in the capacity of Vice President of Credit Operations. They had 4 offices, one in Toronto, Quebec, Vancouver, and Calgary. And then the opportunity to start up Street Capital became available, and I jumped at it. I felt that my work effort and ethic that I had at CIBC/First Line would be applicable in a startup like Street Capital, and with ownership opportunity, I felt that it was the right move to make.
So you guys are going into your 8th year, and you're definitely have done really well in that time. In Street Capital, I'm talking about. So before we dive into your story and how you more about your role with Street Capital, I always like to ask about a quote, because I find quotes are impactful, they're portable, and you can use them to kind of keep you on track. I know I use them all the time in my life. So can you share a quote that's really had an impact on your life or business?
Well, it may not necessarily be a quote. It's just I'm a believer that hard work gives you, gains you success in life, and it truly is related to the effort that you put into anything in life. You will reap the rewards that are associated with the level of effort that you put towards anything, be it your life and business or even your personal life. If you work hard at it, you'll reap the returns that you deserve.
Right. So you get out of something what you put into it.
Yes, absolutely.
Just how, if I were to so can you share an example of how you've applied that in your life or business?
Well, Street Capital is a great story. When we first started out, it was myself and 5 underwriters, and literally we were naive, specifically the executive that started up Street Capital. We were naive. We felt that we had established relationships when we were at First Line, and we felt that as soon as we turned on the lights at Street Capital, the phone would ring, the people would be lined up at the door wanting to send us business, and after a couple of months of calling all our what we thought were deep relationships at our previous lender, all we heard was crickets, and we came to understand that we had to start from ground zero, and we had to earn their business. And it included, I may have had title of Vice President of Credit Operations for Street Capital, but I was on a day-to-day basis. I was underwriting applications. I was performing in the role of a sales rep. I was contacting brokers, introducing myself, asking for business, and having to underwrite deals myself. And from day one, we were always focused on the quality of the portfolio. So what we do today is we have a separate group that is a second set of eyes that reviews deals prior to funding. And prior to that, when we were a small little entity, it was me that was doing that on my kitchen table on weekends. And the number of hours that we had to put towards, funding a very small amount of business was really related around, building relationships and also making sure that the quality of business that we were booking initially was good business, because we felt that the quality of our portfolio would give us more opportunities to open doors with investors and gain the liquidity that's necessary to grow to where we've grown. And that strategy has led to our ability to grow our portfolio to, mortgages under administration to over $22 billion, and a portfolio performance that, when you measure it by arrears, we're half of what the industry averages. So we're very proud of both the size of our portfolio and the quality of our portfolio.
Right. I'm sure it makes it much easier to attract the attention of investors if you can say things like, hey, our arrears rate is half because we have a better...
Well, I can tell you within the first 10 minutes of meeting with an investor, that's their first question.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't how much can you do. It's what have you done and what's the quality like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And so it's interesting too that you say to me that you had all these established relationships. People obviously knew you, trusted you guys, but then when you started something new, you had to restart and build that relationship again. So were you more successful building new relationships with new brokers, or did you eventually win over the previous brokers that worked with you at First Line?
From a timeline perspective, we were successful on winning over new relationships. So our top producers within the first 3 years were with brokers that we had little to no relationship previously through First Line.
Mm-hmm.
And the deep relationships that we had through First Line probably didn't start to evolve with Street Capital until our fourth and fifth and sixth year. I believe a lot of those brokers were taking the position of let's wait and see. And secondly, and I think as important, was that they had an established relationship with their lender, with an underwriter. Their deals, quote unquote, were getting done. So, I can understand that from a broker perspective. Why would I change what I have right now? It's working. I send in applications, I get them approved, and it's very difficult to win a broker's business over to a new lender. We learned the hard way, not through the effort that's necessary to continue to knock on doors and have doors slam in your face, quote unquote, and continue to go back and ask for that one deal, get a chance to show them, what you can deliver.
Uh-huh.
And we're, through just hard work and continued effort and continue knocking on doors, we were able to win over some brokers. And, word gets out. It's a small industry. You're only as good as your last deal from a broker perspective, and word gets out.
That's how we feel about realtors feel about us.
Yeah,
some realtors are.
And as a broker, word gets out, and brokers talk and they meet. There's forums, there's symposiums, there's the national conference through camp. There's also MBABC, AMBA. So through all those forums, there's an opportunity to meet with peers, and they talk about what lenders are delivering: good service, good products, competitive rates. And it's not one. The magic formula is not just one item. It's service, it's products, it's rates, and it's relationship.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. So another thing I've noticed talking to successful brokers and people in the lending leaders in the lending like yourself is that failure is something that everybody experiences, but it's never fatal. And there's always a lesson looking back. So can you share something that you had failed at, but now looking back, there was a lesson in it for you? Well,
we learned that we probably, we felt some initial success on the A side, and a few years back, we thought we could leverage our success on the A side and launch a B program. And if we had to do it again, which we will do it again, we'll probably sharpen our pencil when it comes to products and rates on the Alt-A/B business. So we launched a few years ago, and if we were to measure success just based on volume, I would feel that there's an opportunity to relaunch and do it a lot better the second time around.
Right. So what was this? Was there a specific lesson in that initial launch that you'll apply to anything you guys kind of do going forward?
I think we need to have a better understanding on what the key products are related to the B business, and sharpen our pencil when it comes to rates. And I think if we do that, well, I think we'll be able to relaunch and deem it more successful the second time around.
Right. That's good. So how did you'd said earlier that you'd started out sort of in different banking into First Line and then now into Street Capital. So your role at Street Capital has changed. So what's happened from, you said you were the vice president of credit and now you're in sales. So how does that role change? What does that look like?
Sure. Initially, obviously, from a VP of credit perspective, my responsibility was to help grow the portfolio with high regard to the quality of the portfolio. So always anticipating, where the quality was and where the potential downfall was in the risk associated with the type of business that we may get from certain brokers, and understanding the type of business that we need to book versus the type of business we need to just say no thank you to. Uh-huh. And through the interactions on a day-to-day business with the brokers, I started to feel very comfortable from a relationship perspective with a lot of the brokers, and I enjoyed the interaction from a face-to-face perspective, even over the telephone regarding discussions related to deals and how we could help grow their business. And with the recent changes or opportunities that came along at Street Capital related to the restructuring and getting us ready for our bank license, there was the opportunity to take over the sales role, and I felt it was just the right evolution from being able to understand what a good deal is and what a good deal isn't, and just leveraging off of the relationship building skills that I had developed in my role as VP of credit, and just to move over to the sales role was probably a very seamless transition.
Right. You'd already had the established relationship. So you just mentioned the bank license thing. So is there any sort of timeline idea on what you guys are hoping with that?
Well, again, it's always a moving target, but we believe over the next 6 to 8 months we will be in a position probably to say we've been successful in our application for a bank license.
Takes time, from what I've I'm not in that space, but from my conversations with people, it sounds like something that takes a lot longer than you expect, and it's a lot of work involved in it. It's not like in the U.S. where it's pretty easy to get a bank license.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was easy in the U.S.
Well, they have the number of banks in the U.S. is just staggering, thousands of them, and little tiny banks, and every little every state has a sort of different way that they do it. But unfortunately, when the crisis hit in 2008, there was a lot of them that went under just because they're not, they're just kind of little mom and pop shop institutions. So versus getting a bank license in Canada it's a process.
No, it is a process.
So I like to always ask about the past, present, and future sort of your organization. So I want to start with the past. So where did the idea for Street Capital come from? I know you were there right at the beginning. I always love stories of, starting out of a garage or, the ideas on a napkin. So what happened there?
It was the brainchild of Ed Gettings. He was a former executive at CIBC who ran literally the mortgage arm of CIBC. He left CIBC in, I think it was fall of 2005. And then he thought that it was a good idea to, you've got egos. You think the success around First Line / CIBC was related to yourself. And I know I felt that way. And so we thought we could do it ourselves. So we all got together on the idea. We thought, it would be easy. I can tell you that it wasn't. When we first started, we rented some office space. I think it was at Jarvis, and I can't even remember, but it was just off of Jarvis. And I can tell you we had wooden desks. A couple of us had only 3 legs on our desk, so you couldn't lean on one side of it or else it would tip over. And we would meet on a regular basis every day at noon at a round table, come up with ideas, and we were trying to better understand what products we could launch with. And we thought, we could do it, no problem. We launched, and as I said earlier, there were crickets, and we just had to get on the phone. I think from day one, people like Ed Gettings and Paul Graywall were knocking on doors. Our executives continued to visit brokers on a regular basis. I'm not sure if you could say that about a lot of lenders, but I can tell you all of the executives of Street Capital visit brokers at their offices on a regular basis, not only asking for business, but thanking them for their support. We're a big believer in relationships with the brokers and and supporting them and developing their business as well as ours. But it was not easy, and we were a very small shop, and we literally had to make sure we were using our pencils all the way down to the last inch of that pencil before we threw it out, because we were trying to limit costs.
That's awesome.
And it was a big change coming from a big five bank where expenses were not an issue, but then we quickly had to transition over to watching every penny that was spent.
Mm-hmm. Right, because you're in that startup phase and you don't want to have too high of a burn rate, and otherwise it can tank you. So now the present, so I always like to ask, so what, with all the sort of options available in the marketplace, what makes Street unique? In your words, what makes you guys awesome?
Well, we feel that our underwriting model is a very strategic and successful one, where the underwriter handles the application from cradle to grave. So the individual that reviews your application and issues a commitment is the same individual that signs off on the post-commitment documentation. And we feel that a lot of storytelling takes place at time of application, and where the model doesn't have an underwriter handling the application from cradle to grave, a lot of the story at the time of commitment is lost when the paper comes in, and that fulfillment officer, for lack of better terms, may be asking questions that were already discussed at time of application with the senior underwriter. So we feel our cradle to grave model for the underwriter handling the application from the time that it comes into the time it funds is a very successful strategy to use, and has been. And again, being in the market with all of the products that we believe brokers need when it comes to business for self, when it comes to the rental program, new to Canada. And I think it's fair to say that our rates are very competitive, have been. We're typically not out of market when it comes to rates. We're aggressive, and we believe that those are contributing factors to our success.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And and there's definitely something to be said for having somebody who knows the file start to finish and not having to repeat, conversations or just connect dots all the time, that someone can actually just,
I can tell you, we're always looking at that model, and we're always asking the brokers if it's the right model, and we continue to get feedback that is the right model to have.
Right. That's what they like. So now I want to switch gears to the future. And so where's the opportunity for, currently you guys are a monoline, maybe you'll be a bank in the next year or so. So what's the big opportunity for the monolines in the next couple of years?
Well, we feel that our ability to offer a broader range of products will be available, or will be gained by getting our bank license. First and foremost, we will want to get into the B space through the raising of capital on the GIC market side. Mm-hmm. And once we do that, there'll be a lot more balance sheet lending when it comes to Street Capital, and we feel that there is a niche market within the Canadian mortgage industry where you've got a lot more people that are business for self. New to Canada is a growing market, and we feel that we'll be able to be more aggressive when it comes to that piece of the Canadian mortgage industry market by having a B program that will be self-funded through our GIC program.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely that particular segment of the market is growing the most. And
then we'll be looking at our credit card. We'll be looking at credit cards. We'll be looking at lines of credit. Every opportunity that we believe is available through obtaining our bank licenses is an opportunity that will be aggressively pursued.
Now, actually, it wasn't a question that I originally was going to ask you, but it's something that's come up recently, and I just wanted to get your take on it. So there's been, like in the media, you hear about this term shadow lending, and they kind of use it to paint a brush of anybody that doesn't basically do something with the big five banks. So can you kind of speak to that? Like, do you see that as a risk to our reputation, or like what's your take on that whole shadow lending?
Sorry, that's the first I've heard of that terminology. What do you mean by shadow lending?
Oh, you've never heard of this? Okay, so in the media, like I've been reading in the newspapers and stuff, they talk about shadow lending, and what they're typically referring to is any lending that's outside of like bank lending, when I look at that and I hear it, it's a way to sort of take a shot at the, broker community, the monoline community, and say, look, you know what, you need to be, Mr. Consumer, you should be dealing directly with a bank because of the shadow lending practices. And it just seems like a way to use language that's very derogatory towards our our particular space. So maybe if you haven't heard about it, then that's good. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe it's just me.
Well, the only comment I would make when it comes to the customer making a decision on getting a mortgage through their bank or through a broker is I believe a broker will be able to provide more options to that customer. I think they will be able to educate the customer and to identify the opportunities or options that are available to the customer out there versus they may use the terminology monoline for us lenders, but if I'm a customer and all I know is a big five bank and I walk into that one of those big five banks and they have whatever they have to offer versus I walk into a broker's office and the broker can show me 10 to 15 different lenders and all the different products related to those lenders. Personally, I'd feel a lot more comfortable knowing what all the options are out there through an independent mortgage broker versus the one bank relationship that I may or may not have.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So while they may be called shadow, they may put I just think I think that's just propaganda from a big five bank perspective. I think what the independent mortgage broker has to offer is a lot more fulfilling to a customer's needs than potentially what one bank may have as a product offering to an individual client.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I think it's just my paranoia that I'm like, well, because when I hear it, I always just think, man, like, you know what? That's not the right language for any type of lending. That's typically Canada is so regulated when it comes to finance and banking, and so
we may not have our bank license, but all our investors are OSFI type entities, and so we have to follow the Schedule 1 bank accountabilities B20, B21. We're accountable for all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, okay. So that makes sense. I appreciate your feedback on that. So last question, and I know that you're in the lending game, but so what do you and you deal with lots of brokers. So what do you think is the biggest risk to the broker industry in the next couple of years?
I don't think it's anything new. I think brokers should be cognizant of the performance of the type of the business that they send to lenders. Lenders on a daily basis or on a weekly basis are looking at the performance of their portfolio and then drilling down to from a broker level how is the business performing from that broker. Mm-hmm. I think the broker needs to take that extra 5 minutes and understand their client, know their client, understand does the application or the transaction make sense. So, if we have a 25-year-old, for example, coming in to purchase a home and they have $100,000 down, understand where that $100,000 down. Typically, that $100,000 hasn't come from accumulated savings from a 25-year-old. So it's just understanding the transaction. Does the transaction make sense? Does the income make sense? Does the down payment make sense? And if it does, and they can take the time to build a story before sending in an application, it makes the process that much easier for the lender when they're discussing the file with, for example, an insurer. Mm-hmm. And related to that is you'll probably get a lot better turnaround when all of the questions have been answered up front, and the service that you'll be able to deliver to that customer will be a lot better because you won't have to be going back and forth with a lender who may have 5 or 6 questions that weren't answered that could have been answered at the time that the broker was taking the application with the customer. Mm-hmm. So all I would say is be cognizant of the type of business that you send to lenders. They're always looking at the quality of the business, and when it comes to a broker who's sending business to a lender and it's good business and it performs well, then I believe that relationship will continue to grow with the broker. And I think when there's a deal that's on the fence, that a client may or may not be able to get a document that may be required, but for whatever reason the client may not be able to obtain it because it's in a box or they're moving, et cetera. I think if a broker has had established relationships through mm-hmm. a strong portfolio, I think the lender would be more apt to help them versus, we're going to pass on this deal.
Right. Yes, definitely. Relationships still matter as much as everything is, automated and we have processes, but there's definitely, you still have to rely on those relationships are critical.
Yeah. And with all the automation, I say this to my team as well, don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. A lot more can be discussed over the phone versus an email or a text.
Right. Totally agree. Well, Alfonso, I really appreciate your time. Where can people find you online?
They can find me online. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. And my email address is alfonso.casciato@streetcapital.ca.
Awesome. And anybody listening to this can go to I Love Mortgage Brokering. There'll be links in the show notes to your LinkedIn profile, as well as anything that we talked about. Alfonso, I really appreciate your time today, and I hope Street Capital continues to crush it.
Thank you very much for the time. Have a great day.
Want to learn from the top 5 mortgage brokers in the country? Then you have come to the right place. Join Scott Peckford on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hey Broker Nation, Scott Peckford here. Have you joined our VIP club for mortgage brokers yet? If not, you're missing out. We share exclusive content not available on the web or the show. We share scripts, step-by-step guides, and other insider tips to help you save time and make you more money. I can't tell you how many times after I turn off the recorder, a guest starts sharing some awesome advice or a script or a tip, and I take the best of this and share it with my VIPs. If you want to get on the list, visit ilovemortgagebrokering.com/VIP. That's ilovemortgagebrokering.com/VIP. Oh, and one other thing. Since this is exclusively for mortgage brokers, there is a skill testing question. Good luck, and I hope you continue to rock your mortgage biz.